The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today for this kind of research update / research ambassadors training. I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to join us. And so Nancy and Sam asked me to kind of give an update to the staff as to where we stand in regards to our HDSA research program, and kind of dovetail it with a new updated slide deck for our Research Ambassador program. So I just want to start off by saying that for those of you who are Research Ambassadors, all of these slides are for your use. You can take them or leave them. They're yours to edit as you see fit, to delete or use the slides based on the time that you're given at a research, at an educational event. So as you can see from this title slide, it's intended for you to personalize it for your particular event. They've all been, this updated slide deck that I'm going to go through today is on the Research Ambassadors extranet site for your use. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started. And if anyone has questions, we'll do it like a typical research webinar. Type them in or raise your hand and we can try to unmute you or just read your question aloud. Okay. Bear with me. All right. So based on some feedback, I wanted to kind of update the Research Ambassadors program and put it into a little bit of perspective as to why we even have a Research Ambassadors program. As for those of you that have been around HDSA for a long time, you're probably well aware that HDSA's had a long history in supporting basic Huntington's disease research. But it was in the past few years that our research support has dwindled because of both redundancies from our coalition program with other organizations like CHDI in the government, as well as financial issues that precipitated us to take a step back and rethink and recraft our research program to be something that's non-redundant, yet impactful. So there were quite a bit of negative feedback from the community that, or suggesting that HDSA needs to get back into the research game. So this Research Ambassadors program is hopefully to try to put some of that unrest down, in that we'll just basically be very upfront with our research program and highlight all of the good things that we are doing. So before I get started, I want to just take you a quick outline of what I want to talk about today. I want to just give you an overview of the worldwide status of HD research, from a high level, and discuss where I think the role of HDSA fits in this puzzle. Then I'll review the current HDSA research activities. Most excitingly, the announcement that I'm sure you've all seen of our much discussed human biology project. We finally have awarded the fellowships, and the research will be beginning on these projects very, very soon. And finally, just discuss research communications efforts ongoing at HDSA. So we're pretty lucky in the world of orphan diseases with Huntington's disease, in that we have quite a bit of organizations and financial backing looking into HD research. And first and foremost is the CHDI Foundation, which I'm sure you're all well aware of. CHDI is a nonprofit biotech company that's focused solely on finding therapies for HD. They have offices in Los Angeles, they have Princeton, New Jersey, and New York City. And they are about 60 to 70 individuals with about 40 to 50 PhD or MD level scientists that are running both internal drug discovery programs and supporting external programs at both pharma, biotech, and academic institutions. each year, just in 2012, they spent about, dedicated around $100 to $120 million on this R&D efforts. So they are a huge supporter and catalyst of HD research in the world. In addition to CHDI, the NINDS, which is the National Institutes for Neurologic Disease and Stroke, that's the arm of NIH that supports and oversees Huntington's disease research. They spent last year approximately $56 million on basic HD research. In addition to that, there's the EHDN, or European HD Network. This is an organization in Europe that's funded by CHDI to support clinical trials in Europe primarily. There's also the Huntington Study Group, which is based here in the United States, which organizes and runs clinical trials in the United States. And there are other HD research support, smaller research support from other organizations, particularly those in North America, such as the Hereditary Disease Foundation, or HDF, and the Huntington Society of Canada. That was then, and what's missing from this is HDSA. And as I stated, the community and the Board of Trustees and leadership has all spoken very loudly and clearly stated that HDSA should support research. And as you can see here in our strategic plan that was unveiled a couple years ago, in the center pillar, supporting research and communicating its impact is central to the mission of HDSA. What's at the center of the HDSA universe is the HD patients and families that we all represent. As you can see in this slide, everything that we do or support, from long-term care, educational materials to advocacy, and all the great work the social workers and support groups do, all centers on the HD patients and families. It made sense that any new research program should do the same. And that's where I think where we see other organizations and the things that they're supporting in terms of HD research, it provides HDSA, we have a unique opportunity here because of our uniqueness in that we have 21 multidisciplinary centers of excellence across the country. And what's unique about this is that this is where the patients are seen and cared for. Other organizations do not have this type of access, immediate access to HD patients. So the Center of Excellence involvement in the new research programs are really exciting because the hope is that we can lower the barrier of entry in the clinic for some sort of interesting or innovative idea regarding HD. And there's really no arguing the fact that these kind of studies, if we can get them accomplished through a new research program in HDSA, will really be physiologically relevant observations. They're not going to be coming from a mouse or a fly or a rat or a sheep model of Huntington's disease. They're going to be coming from a human patient that has Huntington's disease or carries the mutation. So any observation that we're able to record is going to be important and potentially very meaningful to better understanding Huntington's disease biology. So we all concluded that for the greatest impact, a new HDSA research program should capitalize on this important asset, which is the patients and the centers of excellence. And we will and have prioritized a more human-centric approach to better understand HD. I'll give you an example of why it's important. We don't even have to talk about all of the different things that I'm sure you've read and heard about that have treated Huntington's disease mice or flies that have yet to come to the clinic or work in the clinic for humans. Mice have been the species of choice to study many, many different human disease models for many decades. However, mice do not get HD, and they don't get other human diseases. And a really striking example of this is sepsis, or overwhelming infection. And like I said, I think the same thing could be said for HD, where in the case of sepsis, there have been almost 150 different drugs identified in mice and tested in mice that seem to work for a sepsis. But when every single one of them was tested in humans, they have all failed. So, just because we see an observation in a mouse, it's a very big hurdle, as you can kind of tell from the figure here of a mouse brain compared to what we're trying to treat in a human brain. It's a pretty big leap to treat a mouse, a 0.4 gram mouse brain, to a 1.4 kilogram human brain. So with that said, we initiated late last year the basic outline for what we're called the Human Biology Project. This is a 1 or 2 year grant mechanism to support young scientists in working collaboratively with an HDSA Center of Excellence. That is the main prerequisite or requirement for all of the grants that we support at this time, is that any idea that comes forward, these people must propose to work with an HDSA Center of Excellence. We provide up to $75,000 a year for 2 years. And as I said, this is for young investigators, both MDs or PhDs, that are 7 years or less removed from their degree. However, it's also open to any innovative ideas from non-scientists. So anyone with an idea about it could be a therapist working in a center, or a computer programmer who has a really interesting idea for an app that could impact or better improve the life of patients with HD. HDSA is happy to entertain it, so long as it's working with the patients and the clinicians at a center of excellence. The deadline for the inaugural Human Biology Project was this August, and I'm happy to say that awards were all made on time on October 1st. Here are, in this first go-round, we awarded 4 fellowships. The first is to Dr. Jun Hua. He's a postdoctoral research associate at the Kennedy Krieger Institute that's associated with Johns Hopkins University. And Dr. Hua will be looking using a very high definition, high resolution MRI machine to look at both functional and neurovascular biomarkers in the brain of HD patients. Our second fellowship winner is Dr. Tanya Garcia. She is a young assistant professor at Texas A&M and has a really outstanding collaboration planned with Dr. Karen Marder at the University of Columbia here in New York City, where they are she's a statistician, and she's going to be using both predict and cohort and enroll and as well as Columbia data on HD patients to create a statistical model that can improve the definition and prediction of Huntington's disease motor onset as well as onset of other symptoms. So it's pretty interesting model or project that could potentially impact how patients are kind of used and placed into clinical trials. The third fellowship that was awarded was to Dr. Roberto Baggio. Sorry, I forgot the O on Robert. He is a scientist at a small biotech company in Italy called Promitis. Promitis is was a recently formed company that was founded by some former Novartis researchers that were working in the Huntington's disease space. And Promitis is working on developing ultrasensitive assays to help us identify or quantitate the levels of Huntington in body fluids, in particular in the cerebral spinal fluid, or CSF. And why this is so important is that as we move closer to Huntington-lowering technologies or Huntington-lowering clinical trials, like the ISIS-ASO trial, researchers need to know that their intervention is working and working in the brain. And the only way to do that, you can't go in and take a punch of a tissue sample of a human brain, but we can collect CSF via lumbar puncture, and that gives us a good idea, a snapshot as to what is happening to the Huntington levels in the brain. So we are working with Prometheus and supporting them to work with 3 centers of excellence, or Ohio State University, University of Alabama, Birmingham, and UCLA, where they'll be working with Prometheus to collect CSF from HD patients to validate a novel, very sensitive assay to measure Huntington in patients. This is could be incredibly impactful, because if this assay, if we're able to validate this assay will be used, I would guess, in pretty much every Huntington's disease trial moving forward. Everyone will want to know, when we give a compound X, Y, or Z, what happens to the Huntington levels in the brain. And this assay is a way of getting to that answer. And finally, our 4th recipient is Dr. Helen Budworth. She's a scientist at Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratories. And she's working with Dr. Cynthia McMurray and collaborating with, I believe it's Johns Hopkins, to look at a metabolic gene expression analysis of fatty acid markers in the periphery or the blood of Huntington's disease patients. This is another effort to try to get at a peripheral biomarker that can help us, that's accessible and could help us better understand HD biology. So we're very excited about these projects, and we expect them to all be starting by the end of this calendar year. Another effort that you've probably are all well aware of is our Don King Summer Research Fellowships. These are given out each spring to support young students during the course of a 10-week summer research experience at a university or medical center in America. We provide salary and a small consumable budget to each recipient. It's open to any U.S. college student enrolled in a science major. It's also open to first-year medical students. And in the next 2 months, we will be announcing and having our call for proposals for the 2014 Don King Summer Fellowships. This year, which the fellowship winners were Jenny Lin from MIT. Jenny was working with Dr. William Yang and Steve Horvath at UCLA, where she was using systems biology or unbiased approach to look at a massive amount of data from both HD mouse and rat models and human brain material to better understand the disease biology. Our second winner was Jolene Luther from the University of Iowa. She was working with Dr. Hans Johnson and Jane Paulson. And she was analyzing MRI data from HD prodromal or pre-manifest patients, looking to identify a biomarker that's related to iron deposits in the brain as a potential biomarker predictor of onset of Huntington's disease. Hopefully you all saw this, but this is a great article that the University of Iowa Center of Excellence created to highlight Jolene Luther. She's shown here with a picture of her grandfather who died of Huntington's disease. So I was very, very happy to be able to award this to Jolene, because clearly her passion is there. Her dedication to Huntington's disease runs deep in her family. So she's just a perfect example of the type of student and future scientist or clinician that this program hopes to support and hopes to support continue in the future. Finally, we also support, as part of a large consortium run by the NINDS, there's support from CHDI, from the Hereditary Disease Foundation, as well as HDSA. We support the iPSC consortium, which is Induced Pluripotent Stem Cell Consortium. Induced pluripotent stem cells are cells taken from the body, typically skin cells or fibroblasts, that can be tricked or reprogrammed, as scientists say, by putting certain genes inside of them to basically make them into any type of cell that they desire. So whether it's a brain cell or a cardiac cell or a fat cell, scientists can basically figure out a recipe to create from a different type of cell from a fibroblast or skin cell. This is an enormous finding in the field. This led to the last year's Nobel Prize for Dr. Yamanaka from Japan, who first identified this process that stem cells can be, or neurons can be created from fibroblasts. This is the quickest in the history of the Nobel that, from initial finding to the Nobel being awarded, that has ever happened. Kind of put it in perspective of how big this finding is. So there's a consortium of stem cell researchers that was formed in 2010 to kind of spearhead an effort using this technology to develop cell models, as well as to try to understand human HD biology. So this is not to be, the goal here is to, as I said, create human cells that contain the human mutation as resources for the research community, and use the observations to help us better understand what's going on in humans and not mice. So this is definitely an agreement with the kind of research direction that HDSA wants to take. This is not to, the goal of this program or consortium is not to develop stem cells to then use for replacement therapy, which you may see in the newspaper or on the internet of different people touting stem cell replacement therapies. That's not the ambition or the goal of this program. And on the right, we won't go through them, but you can just see a list of some of the members of the stem cell consortium. Many should be very familiar to you because several are former HDSA Coalition for the Cure scientists. We also have, we're building our research communications efforts. We are proud supporters of HD Buzz, which can be found at hdbuzz.net. I encourage you all, as well as any of the people that you're presenting at an educational event, direct them to this website, make it a favorite, because it's an incredible resource for the community that summarizes any kind of hot paper or press release that comes out. Within 24 hours, HD Buzz is on it, and it has a lay summary of what that means and what that means to the HD community. We are also still updating our new website and our research section, which has all of the different information about the different research programs, such as Human Biology Program, the Summer Research Fellowship, as well as clinical trial information on it. We have a number of different research HDSA publications which highlight different research activities like Toward a Cure and the Marker. And our new effort for this year was a research webinar series to bring scientists in to talk to or present to the HD community and patients in a simple language about hot topics that are emerging in the field. So they're given every month. Unfortunately, there won't be the one this month because of some scheduling conflicts, but we will resume it back in November. And we've had a number of different topics ranging from stem cells to antisense oligonucleotides to sleep and circadian dysfunction to different clinical trials such as Enroll or Kids HD. And next month we're going to be hearing from Drs. Claudia Testa and Sam Frank on the upcoming First HD trial, which is a novel drug from Auspex Pharmaceuticals that is very similar to tetrabenazine. Also, I ask that if, as you're presenting this, to let people know if there's something important or pressing that you'd like to hear someone speak on, a topic you'd like to hear about, let us know. Have them email us at researchupdates@hdsa.org, and we'll certainly do our best to identify a good speaker to present on that topic. Finally, while we don't financially support clinical trials. HDSA works hard to support and promote all HD clinical trials, whether it be observational, Enroll HD or Kids HD or Predict, or interventional, such as CREST-E or the first HD trial, or the PDE10A inhibition trials that are just now underway with Pfizer. All of those are something that we're doing to try to make everyone aware of what's going on as more and more drugs get closer and closer to the clinic. So finally, I just want to close by saying, what to the community, saying, what can you do to help? Well, there's a lot of different ways to help. There's all different levels of engagement, from a lot of time commitment, such as, maybe joining your local chapter and affiliate in a leadership position, or starting a Team Hope Walk in your community, or some sort of fundraising effort to help expand our HDF research efforts, or become a part of the research experience. So I ask people to go to our website and for updates on these human biology projects. I'm going to be providing more information about the studies as they get initiated later this year, about what centers are doing what, or what centers are collaborating with who, because there are opportunities where patients can actually go to, let's use UCLA as an example, and in the next year donate CSF and actually be part of this really important project to validate an assay for mutant Huntington. So I ask you to direct them to that and participate in clinical trials such as Enroll HD or others as they become available. It's a great way to empower yourself and get part of this important process, because without patient participation, there will be no clinical trials. I'd visit clinicaltrials.gov for HD trial details, as well as subscribe to hdtrials.org so you can be notified of trials as they become available in your area. So with that, that's all I have. I want to thank you for your time, and then I'll just say to those research ambassadors that at the end of this slide deck, I also have extra slides that you can use if you're interested, if you're given more time at an educational event, where you can, I have slides about, what was the Coalition for the Cure, if those questions come up, and what happened to the Coalition for the Cure, who's on the scientific advisory board, where are they coming from, some basics about Huntington's disease biology, if you're interested, where our research ambassadors are in clinical trials diplomats, and where you can obviously see where they're needed. And also some of these slides where I know they're hard to see on the computer, but all of this information I have put up onto the research ambassadors webpage or extranet page, where it has current status of both observational and interventional clinical trials for HD. So periodically I'll continue to update this as a resource for you to take to an educational event, or so when someone asks what's going on with Enroll HD, you'll have this information, even a website or hyperlink to click on. So that is it. I just will open it up to some questions. Oops. See if you have any questions. Well, just bear with me. Oops. Oops. Okay, so first question, why not cell replacement for the iPSC cell consortium? It's a good question. That's just not where the direction that this consortium wants to go. They see first that it's better to use these stem cells to create better cellular models of Huntington's disease with a physiologically relevant CAG repeat length. So using this could help potentially be a rapid way to better understand what's going on in humans, and not focus on development of stem cells for therapy right now. It's also hopeful that they can develop these human cells from the induced pluripotent stem cells that they can use. These will be a better model for screening drugs, whether at a pharmaceutical company or an academic institution. Next question is, I heard that PREDICT subjects are asked to donate CSF at their next visit. Can you comment on that and its importance to research? I don't know about PREDICT donating CSF, but it's very important for research. It's a great question because, as I said, CSF and looking at the different proteins and things that are expressed in CSF can actually provide us with a window of what's going on in the human HD brain. So it's something that's accessible. It's really not that, it's not painful or that uncomfortable, discomfort. Anyway, so it's a very important aspect, and as I mentioned with the Prometheus contract that we're supporting, they will be looking for volunteers to donate CSF at UCLA, UAB, and Ohio State. Can you tell me a little bit more about the history of HSG in the format of the symposium seminars? I'm a terrible person to give a history of HSG, unfortunately. I really don't know the history of them, but I can say that they're organized through the University of Rochester, where they have a large number of, I want to say 80 or 90 different sites that are participating HSG sites that help them run clinical trials for HD. The format of the symposium seminars is that, I guess you're alluding to the research webinars, and they're just a monthly seminar series that we do. We ask the presenters to give a PowerPoint presentation just like this on GoToWebinar, and in very lay language. We record them just like we're doing with this, and make them available on the website, and people can ask questions. We have them every month on what either we get recommendations from the community or what we feel is kind of a pretty hot topic that we think the community should know more about. Is it logical to do a research and clinical trials presentation together? Is there a consolidated flyer to have at education days? Yeah, great question. So we do have I did put together a frequently asked question sheet, as well as a one-pager of all of this information that you can certainly hand out at an educational event. So it's a one-pager of, Cliff Notes version of this, where this is where we stand of today with our research program. And thank you for the question, because that just gives me an action item to update that one-pager based on our new grant recipients. Is it logical to do research and clinical trials presentation together? We talked a lot about that. There's been debate about research ambassadors versus clinical trials diplomats. We've opted to kind of keep them separate because the message is different. The message we're trying to convey with the research ambassadors is, what's going on from the research perspective at HDSA and in the community. And the clinical trials diplomat program is more geared towards talking about having people who are actually participants in trials, talking about their experience and trying to break down barriers and walls to try to increase participation in these trials. So for the time being, we see them as kind of separate. But you can certainly be both if you're a participant in clinical trials, and we would certainly encourage you to do so, is to be a clinical trials diplomat and a research ambassador. I could be a research ambassador, but I'm not participating in any clinical trials for HD, so I would feel uncomfortable getting up there and trying to convey a message about participating in clinical trials. So that's it, unless anyone else has any other questions. Like I said, all of these slides are available for you to take what you feel comfortable presenting. Maybe it's just a slide or two about Human Biology Project. Maybe you just want to talk about this Don King Fellowship, or depends on your educational day and how many times or how much time is allotted to you. I just wanted to give you as much as possible as a resource for you to use as you see fit. So if you have any questions or concerns, I'm happy to hear your feedback and take your questions. Just feel free to email me or give me a call. And that's it. Thank you for joining us. And oh, one more question. On the extranet under research, I went to the webinar choice, but what do I click to get a copy of all the slides of this webinar? So under the Research Ambassadors section for the extranet, there's just one PowerPoint presentation. It should say, I believe it's called RA PowerPoint, Research Ambassadors PowerPoint. I forget the exact name, but it's the only one there, and you should be able to just click on it, and once it's open, save it to your desktop if you'd like. If you have any questions or any problems, just email Sam or myself. All right, thank you, everybody.